This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Dr. Anna Wasescha, who has just been voted the real president at Middlesex Community College. Now, you come to us from Minnesota, don't you?
Yes, I do, yes.
Fergus Falls, Minnesota,
Yes.
3 hours north of Minneapolis. And as we record this today, I gather it's still snowing, or the snow on the ground?
There was still snow when I left 4 or 5 days ago, and the ice was still on the lake.
So now
Yes.
we know why you want to come to Connecticut.
When I was little, many people watched Rocky and Bullwinkle, and they were from Frostbite Falls, and I thought Fergus Falls was the location of where they all lived. I mean, it lives up to its every stereotype you have of being the frozen north.
So you've been to Connecticut a couple of times for interviews.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about Middlesex Community College that attracts you, now that you're the boss, or you're going to be the boss?
Well, of course, I met so many wonderful people, and I have to say every one of them was so warm and welcoming and so proud of this institution that I think that communicated to me that this was a good place to work and to study. Then, of course, I looked at the website and the academic programs, and I could see that you do such phenomenally interesting work, not only in the liberal arts, but you have the ophthalmic center and the video program for students, which is very intriguing. I will say, also, having a child care center on campus is remarkable. It's something
all the 12 community colleges in Connecticut have that.
And
it's wonderful.
It is wonderful, and it makes so much sense for students who have children for whom child care is a real barrier to be in school. In Minnesota, that's very unusual, and so I'm just pleased to have that. There's a little garden there. The campus site is absolutely beautiful. People approached me throughout the interview process this morning when we had that event in Founders Hall, and they said, we want to do this, and we have this idea. And so I think that kind of energy is the kind of energy I thrive on. So
You're right about the site. I mean, the buildings aren't so great, but you can look out over the Connecticut River, and you can walk up in the woods, and blood pressure goes down immediately, and all that land belongs to the state.
Right.
This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and we'll be back momentarily, and I will ask you about your biggest surprise. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Dr. Anna Wasescha, who has just been named as the next president of Middlesex Community College, and she's been on campus twice now, and I was asking you, what's a surprise?
Mm-hmm.
What surprised you here?
Well, I was just thinking that I only had the opportunity to tour one of the classroom buildings, and it's the building with the child care center, but also the art studios. And
Right.
All along the hall and in the studios themselves, I could see what the students were producing, and I was thinking to myself that this is the quality of work that I've seen at art colleges. I mean, that it
Wow,
is
that's
superlative
great to hear.
work. Yeah, and so that tells me that the teachers are excellent because they open up those artistic avenues for students, and the students are incredibly talented because they're able to go down those avenues and create work that really is outstanding. And I love the arts. So if I generalize from the arts to the rest of the campus,
When you were on campus today, as we speak, you were talking about your love of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very strong poetry program here.
Yes.
And I bet they'll be asking you to read.
I would love to do that.
So I'm sure our listeners are kind of interested in what brings a Minnesota girl to Connecticut. Tell us a little bit about, take us through you went to high school, I assume.
I did.
Good.
I went to high school in St. Louis, Missouri, and Mark Twain is an iconic figure in Missouri,
Yes.
as you can imagine. So I toured his house in Hannibal last Friday. I came in early for this meeting with the Board of Trustees, so I got a chance to see the Mark Twain house, which, it sends
quite
a
something,
rip,
isn't
and
it?
that's where he wrote Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn and a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's
Yeah.
Court.
And where I think one of his daughters died.
Yeah,
Yes.
sad. I think he had
Yes.
4 children and only one lived to be an elderly person.
Right.
So, I did grow up in St. Louis, and I do love Mark Twain. Then I migrated to Minnesota in 1971. My had grandparents who lived there and relatives, and my parents had been born there. And I loved Minnesota. It's a very progressive, wonderful place. Land of 10,000 lakes and blue skies, and a strong history of political activism, ranging from the old days of Hubert Humphrey to the new days of Paul Wellstone. So it was a heady time to move.
So
to
you went
Minnesota.
to college in Minnesota?
University of Minnesota.
And what did you major in then?
In English literature, of course.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent.
And my poetry teacher was a British person named Michael Dennis Brown. So, yes.
Okay.
And of course, John Berryman had been there.
Yes.
Yeah.
My wife was a student of John Berryman's and still has a paper where he wrote excellent or superb
Yes.
or something. And she dines out on that
He
on a
is
regular basis.
remarkable.
Oh,
The
John
love
Berryman is
songs
one of
with
the
John
great
Berryman.
poets.
Yes.
So this was at the University of Minnesota. So you majored in English.
Yes.
And what was your main interest there at the time?
Well, I was planning
Yeah.
to earn a PhD and teach English literature at the college level. That was my goal. But life intervened, and I got onto other tracks.
Tell us about the other tracks.
The other tracks. Well, I was very active in the poetry scene. I was one of there were 4 editors in my senior year of the University of Minnesota Literary Magazine, but I was one of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was fabulous. The other 3 were men, and I was the only one who could drive, which is unusual. And the Minnesota is a home of a lot of theater and a lot of writers, and so a lot of people came through. I got to meet William Burroughs, for example, and spend a weekend with him, and that was unbelievable,
Wow.
as you can imagine.
Yeah.
At that time, I was also looking to find work, and I got out the Yellow Pages and started calling colleges, and I got a job at Hamlin University and embarked upon a career in college administration, and I sort of...
Now, describe Hamlin University. I think it's private, isn't it?
Yes, it's private, and it's United Methodist affiliation, coeducational, and many of the students are middle class and working class students, children of pastors. And Garrison Keillor, who also, of course, is very famous in Minnesota, came through early on in my career at Hamlin when he was still extraordinarily affordable. And he came over to give a presentation to the students, and he started riffing on, a McAllister student is like this, and a Gustavus Adolphus student is like this, but the Hamlin students are the ones who made A's in high school, but would be embarrassed to tell you about it. Yeah. And he had it. He nailed them.
Now, how about a challenge? Do you think you'll be able to get Garrison Keillor to come to
Boy,
Middlesex Community College?
He's saying he's going to retire, so I think that means he might have a little extra time on his hands. He loves to come to funky places, so if there's a great place here, he likes old Founders Hall type of places, and I'll certainly see what I can do.
Okay, we'll hold you to that.
Yeah.
So you got your bachelor's at the University of Minnesota, working at Hamlin, got your master's
While
probably
I was
at...
working at Hamlin, I did that part-time, and then
What was your master's in?
Higher education. And I would say, if I had to say within the field, I'm really an historian and a philosopher person within the track. That was my main interest, and so I know all kinds of arcane details about what happened in 1873 and, all the Moral Act, all that. I love the history of higher education because it's actually the development of the intellectual life of the United States of America when you look at it.
Sure is.
And, and there were...
And the University of Minnesota is one of the few major state universities that's right near the capital, rather than
Right.
hidden somewhere like Storrs or Urbana or wherever.
Right.
So you're working at Hamlin, and then you went on to your PhD,
Yes,
I think?
and I did that. I decided to do that full time. So I went out to the end of the diving board and I jumped off and said, okay, I'm going to be a full-time student. And it was glorious. And it was, the program was offered with the idea that all graduate students would be full-time. So they call the University of Minnesota the Dust Bowl of Empiricism. Right? So if you cannot count it, it does not exist. So you have to, as a PhD student, you have to take 5 statistics courses. And they offer them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10:15 to 11.
I hate them already.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're working, how are you going to do that? So,
So you're comfortable with numbers, comfortable with statistics, comfortable with...
I've made peace with them. Yes.
Comfortable with budget cuts,
Yes.
comfortable...
Yes. Well, the addition and subtraction. Yeah.
What was the dissertation topic?
Oh, again, I was very lucky. It was on decanal satisfaction.
Would you say that again?
Decanal, Decanal. I'm also a lover of words. And a dean, the adjective for a dean is decanal.
Ah, the satisfaction of deans.
Yes, and the root of it is that you were the leader of 10. It comes from the Latin word for 10, so 1 of 10, first among equals. It's quite nice. So I wanted to know what deans thought about general education reform, which again is that kind of recurring energy in undergraduate education to say, if we really seriously want to be producing students who are critical thinkers and have an ethical compass and can be active citizens and can work with people who are very unlike themselves and come to some kind of sense of the common weal together. And we say, we're going to give you these courses and ask you to work your way through them, and at the end we're going to expect that this is what you will be like. Are we actually achieving that? Mm-hmm. And that's a very tall order, and we have, we're developing ways of assessing that, but there is no way that you can, even in a dust bowl of empiricism, where you can actually nail that down and say, check, we got that, and check, we got that.
So you're still working at Hamlin, which is a somewhat selective private institution.
Yes, mm-hmm.
Describe how you got into the community college world.
Oh, yes. That's interesting. I guess that there were a few things that led me to it. One is that when I was in student affairs at Hamlin, and so of course I had a strong alliance with the student groups, and I saw their struggles, and I saw what they were going through, and I saw their achievements, which were remarkable. I also then started working a little here and there part-time at Concordia University, also small, urban. Again, many first-generation college students who were unsophisticated about what they were embarking upon, but had huge dreams for what they could do. And then, of course, because I thought a lot about higher education, I was very aware of this sector. This is a very, very important sector in higher education if you break it up. 1,122 colleges of this sort, and we are this
even in Connecticut, the community college sector is larger than either the Connecticut State University or UConn.
Right. And Mark is right. I did say this, and I believe it. It's the strongest expression of democracy that we hold in this country, because it is the people's college. And
so what was your first job in community college?
It was in Fergus Falls. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
How long ago was that?
In fall of 2007.
Describe the very first day, first week in community colleges. What were you up to?
Very visual learner, because the campus that I was on was had undergone quite a lot of renovation, but it was also covered with artwork. The college has a collection of over 400 art pieces. So it was, and so I was starting to decode the narrative, the history, the story of that college through the artwork that had been collected. So much of it had actually been done by former students. There was a tradition of asking students to leave one of their best works behind when they left, in over 50 years, you can imagine the collection. I think it was trying to learn the story. I listened a lot and talked and I asked a million questions.
I can imagine. Middlesex Moments, I'm Jonathan Daube. We'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Dr. Anna Wasescha, who's the new, for real, president at Middlesex Community College, and we've been talking about her background in Minnesota, English graduate, editor of the literary magazine, the University of Minnesota, connections with Garrison Keillor and various poets.
Mostly as an audience. Yes.
Well, that's okay. And a PhD, and then some years ago you fell into community colleges. Mm-hmm. And what I'm interested in is how all that has shaped you in terms of what you think the future of Middlesex Community College is. You've had all this immense variety of experience, which is wonderful, and you come here to lead Middlesex Community College. What's the Wasescha era going to be like?
Well, that is an enormous question, and I can only begin to first of all, I can only respond from a very kind of global perspective because I haven't had my
Right.
feet on the ground here at Middlesex. But I have a sense of the role of this college and the program that you offer and the numbers of students you have, and a little bit. Working from a lot of ignorance, I just want to say that over and over again. But here's what the big picture, I think, for community colleges is that this is our day in the sun in this country, because we have, despite laying aside all of the terrible budgetary issues and the reorganization of our own economy, this is the point at which national attention is being focused on moving toward universal post-secondary education. And I think, and I certainly heard it at my own school in Minnesota, for a long time people have thought that two-year schools were a last choice, a second choice, an alternate choice, maybe a good choice for a while, but there wasn't that strong identification with the powerful education you could receive and the way that a community college could advance your own personal development and work development and life development. We now will be asked to educate more and more students, to graduate more students, and there will be many, many more eyes on us as we do that. And I think that's fine. I think that as the public becomes more and more sophisticated themselves about what we do, and the only way they can become more sophisticated is if we talk to them about what we do, and we can show them what we do and demonstrate it, then they will be our allies as we go forward. And I think, that community colleges may very well ascend in the hierarchy of higher education as a result of this time where because we know this, we know the miracles that we've observed.
Do you think the
in these
public
two-year
are
schools.
comfortable coming onto a community college campus unannounced and just wandering about and maybe using the library?
And do they even know that that's possible? And I don't know. I worked very hard to make people in my community in Fergus understand that it was their college, and we had computer terminals available for them. And the library was open on Sunday night from 5 to 9 if they wanted to come over, as well as during the evenings in the week. And we had, and we welcomed dog walkers. I thought that was great, and a lot of people came over for that. And skiers, we did the bombardier. You may not have a bombardier in your Parks and Recreation Department here in Middlesex, but a bombardier.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, it's a great machine, and it grooms cross-country ski trails, and so we would have the trails groomed, and people could come and do it. So we were always looking, and we also had a circular drive, so we could do a 5K. It was really quite nice. So we were always looking at ways to make sure that the community could come.
Well,
out.
I hope the people who are listening to us now know that the site here is incredible. I mean, you can walk onto the campus on a spring day and just keep walking,
Right.
and it's beautiful.
It's like a park.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Uh-huh.
It really is.
Right.
And of course, people are very, very welcome.
Right.
The library, I don't remember exactly what hours it's open, but the library is very welcoming. People can borrow, of course, from
Right.
all over the place.
Wonderful.
I hope under your leadership, the college becomes even more welcoming than it is. You talk about Sundays. I think Sundays is probably a little sleepy from what I can see, but some of that costs money, I suppose. Well, let me ask you a personal question. If you had children now who are 17, 18, 19, would you be happy? Would you encourage them to go to a community college to start their higher education? Would you be resistant to that? How would you feel about that?
I wouldn't. But here's what I would tell. I actually, there's a young man in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, town of 14,000, and he's always been incredibly an exceptional student. He's been admitted to Princeton, Yale, and Harvard. So he came to me and my husband, and he said, "What should I do?" And here's the advice I would give, and this relates directly to your question about should you come to a community college. It's not, when you make that college decision, it's not just the aspects and attributes of the college you need to look at. You also have to look at yourself, because you need to know that you fit there, that the union of your values and skills and your interests and what the college can bring to the table will be the best for you. And there are 1,000 dimensions of that choice. It may be a good idea to get 100 miles from your parents at that point. Or it may be that you are exceptionally interested in the literary magazine and the college, which isn't even part of the curriculum really, but it's something you could do
Right.
as a student in your student life side of your experience. So you need to be sure that the fit is good. I think the beauty of community colleges writ large is that they are so flexible. They are so welcoming to so many kinds of students who come with different ambitions and backgrounds. And that's not true in the case of this young man. But even there, where he is not very sophisticated in a way of what would the Ivy League be like, and he's nervous about the choice, and yet all of the power in his mind is in those institutions. And really, he needs to take back to himself some of the power and say.
Can he do both? Can he go to a community college for a year or two, get some credits and get some confidence, and then
Yes.
transfer?
Absolutely, and I have met many students who have come to my school. I don't know if you have this phenomenon here, who first went to a four-year institution, and in that first semester
Oh yes.
found that
Yes.
it was too much. They came back, they got their sea legs, they got that inner strength, and then they could go and they could make more of that adventure when they were juniors and seniors. And what we know, at least what I know from my school, and I've heard it here too, is that the students who start at the two-year school, see, this is another piece of, well, we need to know more about how we are educating our students so we can talk to the public about it. But one of the things that I know about my school is that the students who do 2 years in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and then transfer to the four-year the universities, do better on the whole than the students who start there as
That's true in
freshmen.
Connecticut as well.
And that's a best kept secret.
That's right.
It is.
That's right. Because, frankly, their parents can't put on their bumper sticker as easily. My child is a student at, wherever. And, of course, there's the financial side.
Right.
And what I would argue with my own, and did with my own children, is you get to go to school with people of all different ages and sizes and dispositions.
Yeah.
And that teaches you far more than a 3-credit course in this, that, or the next thing.
Where everyone is pretty much alike. Right?
Let me ask you an impossible question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you, after a few years, how do you think this college, Middlesex Community College, may be different for the fact that you're here?
Well, I think I'm very, very interested in issues related to sustainability. So I hope that even if it doesn't look very different, maybe it will. That the green landscape, the bucolic campus you have, is thriving and operating in a very sustainable way. And I don't know what that will look like, but the appearance of the landscape is important to me, and that maybe is a minor kind of thing, but there's
No,
that.
it's not. It's in our strategic plan, actually.
Yeah, and I hope that the faculty feel empowered to express their hopes and dreams for the curriculum, that they feel a real strong ownership with it, identification with it, and want to take it forward, keep it current, keep it vital, and keep it interesting to them. Be on the forefront of things, be willing to experiment, and to do that you have to be willing to fail.
Right.
So I hope that's happening. I hope the students come here and feel a real strong identification with this college, that it is their alma mater, and they are Middlesex.
I think they do. I think it can be strengthened,
Yeah,
but I think they do. I got to ask you this question. Right now, as we sit here, there are all kinds of budget issues in Connecticut, and issues of how higher education gets organized. And some of the stuff one reads in the paper is a little scary. How does that make you feel coming into this state for the first time?
It doesn't worry me a bit. I mean, I
I'm
suppose
glad to hear that.
the
That's
rational
good.
response is I should be worried, but no. I mean, first of all, I've lived long enough to see the ebbs and flows of budgets, and I've also, of course, maybe I read too much in the higher education literature, but I see a kind of a great awakening, which it's not really a good combination, because there's some very bad things about the old Great Awakening. But let's say that there's some very good things about the new Great Awakening, about the importance of educating our way to a better economy and into a 21st century economy. I see that out there.
This has been Middlesex Moments.
Yeah.
My guest has been Dr. Anna Wasescha, who's the new president at Middlesex Community College.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you don't seem to be afraid of too much, and I think that's incredibly important. And when I'm back in retirement, I'm going to look very optimistically at your leadership here. Take a look at our website, mxcc.comnet, 2Ms, comnet.edu. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. Have a good day.